Who's not coming down the track? Who's not coming down the track? It's a Nemo Street in red and white. Nemo Street in red and white. Ain't nothing finer in the rain. Ain't nothing finer in the rain. When the drums are marching straight to bed. Come on,
What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Best in Savannah Nothing
Whoop
Finer
whoop.
podcast.
Yes,
Um,
sir.
it's funny. Mike said that he was going to bring his crown from the last time home, and I tried to wear mine to record, and it just cut my head off right here because of the fake background we have. So that not wearing a crown tonight. But
Yeah, I may do that next time just because I need to cut off some of my head because it is huge, especially after winning 2 out of 3. Let's go.
that's true. That's true. People are asking if we're the next dynasty for Savannah podcasting.
Hmm. Was the NASCAR podcast from WTOC where all the receivers hurt? People are asking because if
Mm,
not, this is a Mickey Mouse title, right?
well, I don't know. Well, so if we're talking 2 out of 3, it's I mean, we got to say Bama, like when they did it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what are the excuses that people go to not say Bama won those titles?
This I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah,
can't you can't say anything. This it's ours.
yeah.
Um, but tonight, ironically, me and Mike have a fantasy baseball draft in an hour and a half. So
Mhm.
obviously brave stuff because you have
Yeah.
to. Um,
Like unintentionally kind of matching, but like the different versions of it. Yeah.
that's true. That's true. I forgot you were wearing brave stuff because you did swing by my house earlier. I got out of the shower like 10 minutes ago and walked in the bedroom, and my jersey was sitting on the dresser from where I wore it like two
Yeah.
days ago, and I was like, "There it is. Let's find the hat."
There you go.
Um, but we are talking. We are going through the March Madness bracket football style. We don't have a name for it. We should have a name for it. Um,
Yeah, we'll workshop it.
yeah, yeah. Well, by the time you guys are hearing this, we will have at least a not stupid name. That's kind of how we do things. But
Yeah, yeah.
um, other than dominating and being called a Savannah podcasting dynasty and being terrified for the fantasy baseball draft later, how are you doing?
I'm definitely not terrified for it. It's the first time that I've done a fantasy baseball in probably like 15 years. So it's gonna be
Well, so I know we've talked about it a lot on the show. This is a daily lineup, 6x6 category head to head league that goes 29 rounds and only 4 bench spots. So you start 25 players a day.
there ain't nowhere to hide.
No,
Yeah.
and it's not like a normal fantasy baseball like categories draft of where you can dominate in one area, because if you dominate in one area for this one, you suck everywhere else.
Hmm.
So I start doing draft prep by listening to the fantasy baseball podcast in January every year. Like I have
I asked.
spreadsheets of the people I plan on picking in different rounds.
I think I'm gonna have to go like girl March Madness strategy and be like, is this guy an asshole? Yes. Okay, he might be good at baseball. I don't know.
So
I'm not
you're
gonna say, oh,
taking
he's
Bryce
cute. I'm not
Harper
gonna
with
do
your
that.
first pick?
What's that?
You're taking Bryce Harper with your first pick?
I think I pick it. No, I was just about to say. I think I'm picking second. I don't remember where you said I was picking, but um, yeah,
I'm
definitely
picking
never take Bryce Harper.
second, but I don't remember. Like, do you even have a first round draft pick? I don't know.
I
You're
honestly, I
picking
don't know.
fifth or sixth out of eight. Um,
Okay.
and I don't think you have a first round pick.
Oh, nah. I got some pretty decent keepers though, so
Yeah, you got
I'll live
Jose
with that.
Ramirez, so there's no way you have a first round pick.
Yeah, yeah. But no, like so yeah, no, it's been a little while since I've been on right before we recorded a couple weeks ago. I just last couple like final exam type projects for my master's, but that's essentially done. I got, a little bit left to do, but then I am hopefully my goal is to be just completely done with everything by like next week. So um that's at the end of the road. But yeah, my wife left to Costa Rica for I think she gets back
Forever?
Friday. She might not come back. At first, she was like, I don't know. Like she was chaperoning a school field trip, and now like she's
Bro,
like,
what's going on with the field trips y'all take? Italy,
so
Costa Rica, like
France,
was I
London, all that,
was I
and next
just
year.
was I just that poor in high school, or did I go to a bad school?
No, so one of my former colleagues, damn good dog, Ron, he started this thing like there's like educational like tour companies that basically sell schools and teachers on like, hey, if you chaperone field trips, kids get college credit or high school credit, depending on what level they're doing or where they're going, and you get enough people to go, you get to go for free. So like
Do you
last
take
year,
volunteer chaperones?
if we so the yes, but we've had like just like you were saying, like is my school too poor or whatever. We have struggled. So like the last couple of field trips, she's gotten enough, barely gotten enough for herself for her, my wife, to go for free. Um, like I was planning on going on this one, but we could not get enough people. We needed like five more people, and like I wasn't about to pay $4,000 to go chaperone other people's kids.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. Yeah,
Um,
I would do airfare if everything else was covered. But
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's more doable. But that wasn't an option. But the next trip is actually I think February of next year is Japan, and it sounds like I have a pretty decent chance of being able to go for free. She's almost free, and there's a bunch of people that are on this trip right now that are saying they're going to sign up for the Japan one. So konnichiwa,
well,
bitches.
I call dibs on chaperone. John and Mike get drunk in Tokyo and talk Jordan football to people who don't understand the language.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a Tennessee Volunteers bar in like Tokyo somewhere. We could just go there and just bark at people.
I the
That'd be
content
sick.
would be bro, the content would be insane.
The guy that owns it is a Tennessee alum, and like I mean, I guess he's cool as you can be as a Tennessee alum. But yeah. But just one last thing, like about Costa Rica, 'cause I never would have went, but she's enjoying it. She got bit by a parrot, so that
Oh,
was fun.
okay.
There's
At
monkeys
least
all over the place.
at least it's not a dinosaur because that's where Jurassic Park was. I heard it's based on a true story.
The book is better.
It is. It is. I actually listened to it like 6 weeks ago.
Oh, is there a book? I didn't know. Is there a book? The more you know. I mean, again, PE teacher,
Bro's got
but
a master's degree and he can't read. What is this?
boy, guy, Copilot and Chat GPT, buddy.
All
What you know
right.
about that? Hey,
So let
how are you? I know we're gonna go through this real quick.
me man, I am what I am. Like I don't even know right now. When you swung by earlier, I was in the process of trying to swap out the radio in this old truck that I bought. And I say old, it's '03, right? It's not super old.
Ancient.
And
Okay.
then I realized that I plugged in the wires through the dash and I had to put the radio in the dash and then plug in the wires. So then
Oh.
in the process of unclipping those with having the hand issues that I do, and yes, I can thank my genetics for pretty significant arthritis in my hands at 30. Um, I ended up tearing apart some of the wire connections that I spent hours making yesterday, and I don't
Oh.
have any extra butt connectors, is what they're called.
Mm.
If you, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to buy more today. I'll get some tomorrow when I'm already out of the house.
Mm.
I just I don't have a dash or a radio in the truck right now, so if I have to leave the house and not take my wife's car, I'll be taking the Jeep. And that's the beauty of having two cars.
There you go.
Um, So let's go ahead and get into this bracket. And so I'll be honest, I did research on schools if it wasn't like an automatic, easy football victory for one side.
Like the first one, like Duke and Siena. Like obviously, I don't know anything about Siena, but they're not beating ACC champion Duke.
ACC champion Duke, correct. And so like obviously Duke, we're just gonna go East top down at like you read the bracket, left to right, East, South,
West
uh,
Midwest.
West, Midwest. Like that's how we're gonna run through it, and we're gonna go top to bottom, round of 64 all the way through, and then like that. So obviously ACC champions Duke with because we're taking 2025 teams at the
Hmm.
time. Duke all-time great quarterback Darian Mensah.
Yeah.
It's taken Siena. I don't even care if Siena has a football team because at the bare minimum they have an intramural flag football team, and they are legit.
Hmm. Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
Last year's Ohio State team is beating last year's TCU team.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So the first one that I struggled with, and if you're just looking at the bracket following along with us, you're going to see St. John's and Northern Iowa. Like, how is that a conversation? Well,
I was like, it's got to be. I'm like, it's got to be Northern Iowa, right?
I got St. John's specifically because Northern Iowa did not. Northern Iowa went 3-9 in the FCS last year, and those three wins came over other teams that also went like 3-9.
So counterpoint, this St. John's is like in I want to say it's in the middle of New York City, right? Because like they play home games in Madison Square Garden. Like there's
Um,
not a chance they actually have a football team, right?
they do have a football team. They are D3,
Okay.
so they're D3, and I looked this up earlier. Like I went straight through their 2025, and to be fair, I do not know who most of these teams are. Right, just
Yeah.
being honest. Um, no one scored a point on them until October last year.
Some would say that's good.
They won 59-0 against Hamline, 63-0 against Augsburg,
Oh yeah.
and 49-0 against Minnesota Morris before losing to a team that made the Division Three playoffs 10-17. And then they bounced back with a 70-0 victory against McAllister.
The kid from Home Alone?
Correct. But their logo is like a badass one-eyed yak, so that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Um, and then
So
they
okay,
went
so
on to score 70 points against Saint Scholastica and 63 points against St. Olaf's.
let it go.
And then they lost to in the playoffs to UW River Falls in the third round of the NCAA playoffs.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty
Okay.
sure UW River Falls made. Did they win last year? I think they
I was
made
about to say
one D3.
I was about to say I thought, but like Wisconsin Whitewater's the better of the, you
Nope,
know.
they won. So basically St. John's was the runner-up for Division Three last year.
Oh, well then okay, so St. John's moving on past Northern Iowa. There you
Correct.
go.
They're not going to make it much further because even though Kansas was bad last year, they're beating Cal Baptist and St. John's.
Yeah, they still have Jaden Daniels for what it's
Jalen.
worth. Jalen. I don't yeah, not Jaden. Jaden
There's too
Daniels
many.
can't
There's
walk.
too many.
They're both injury prone, can't walk at this
Facts.
point.
And then honestly, this East bracket is the one where I had the most issues because Louisville versus UCF. Disappointing teams.
USF.
USF. Disappointing-ish teams that reached up and smacked around some better teams, right? Like
Mhm.
USF obviously won in the swamp. Louisville beat Miami. Like,
It's
but
pretty good.
I will say I do have USF moving ahead because USF they were multifaceted. In certain games, USF didn't they struggled for all of the facets of their team to perform, but they could
Mhm.
pass, they could run, they could defend the pass, and they could defend the run. Louisville struggled to do anything effectively except for pick off Carson Beck, which I think we could get 11 listeners on a football field and probably get a few interceptions on Carson Beck.
You have to say that's not really an accomplishment.
Right. Potentially a hot take in this next game.
Uh,
I have North Dakota State over Michigan State.
Michigan State was
One of the
not
worst
good to say the
teams
least.
in FBS last year.
They fired their head coach Jonathan Smith, not to be confused with John L. Smith, because that he was also a Michigan State coach at one point. They fired him after 2 years, which Michigan State, I mean, they like to
A
think they're good at
Michigan
football.
State
They're not.
alumni as well, or right? No,
No,
he
no,
was Oregon
he was
State
Oregon State
alumni
alumni and left
and then
them.
left for Michigan State. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, Michigan State. If you had a kid who didn't know anything about college football and started watching last year, and you said, "Hey, kid, Michigan State made the playoffs like 10 years ago," they wouldn't believe
Yeah.
it. There's
No.
absolutely no chance. You'd be like,
Yeah.
Michigan State went on a run of Rose Bowls and made the playoffs once, like a
Mhm.
decade ago. There's no way. No way
Yeah.
they would do it. So I do have North Dakota State over Michigan State, and then just the Travesty Bowl, UCLA versus UCF.
Neither of these schools should have had a football team last year. Scott Frost is still, national championship coach. There's
True.
that.
That is true. And Nico was paid $8 million while he was in high school. So
And he beat
Penn
preseason
State.
top 5 Penn State
That's true.
with an interim coach. So I don't know.
I do have UCF beating UCLA. UCLA was just they were not significantly better than Michigan State last year.
No, not at all. No, I gotta agree with that. The Knights moving on. Yeah, UConn Furman. I would assume UConn's FBS Furman. I don't know, but I would assume UConn would be fine with that.
And UConn kind of ran through Conference USA last year.
Mm-hmm.
So
was
I
that
do have
was that
UConn.
last year or the year? Was that last year or the year before?
No, last year. No, because they were independent. So they ran through their schedule for the most part last year as independent teams because the people that had UConn players on their college fantasy league teams last season
Oh yeah.
won their week more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
Like Connor, who won the league, he had a UConn player. Kelsey won pretty much every week after she picked up a UConn player. So UConn was a little bit of a cheat code because they were independent. And then, shockingly, we do have Florida over whoever they play.
Prairie
That's the
View.
16 seed. Prairie View.
Prairie
Okay,
View.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
The bracket you sent me has Prairie View / Lehigh, but it doesn't
So I
matter.
guess the one I'm looking in has the playing games filled in. But
I
yeah,
gotcha.
it's Prairie View, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Florida, regardless of how bad they were, they're beating either one of those teams.
Mhm.
And I've got Iowa over Clemson.
Yes, 2025, absolutely.
Yeah. Quarterback from Iowa, Gronowski, the most Big Ten quarterback name you could ever imagine. The guy is what people thought DJ Lagway was. Like
That's a good comp, yeah.
he can throw the football goal line to goal line, not necessarily accurate, but he can also run you over and get 200 rushing yards a game.
Yeah.
I mean, and then Vandy obviously over McNeese. Vandy had the best season probably in the history of their program last year. I do have Nebraska over Troy just because last year was a down year for Troy. If last year was a normal Troy year of 10-2 and winning the Sun Belt, I may have them over last year's Nebraska team with how disappointing they were. But I do, because it was a down year for Troy, I do have Nebraska. I also got UNC over VCU. I don't think that's much of a question. Illinois over Penn. because
Yeah.
Illinois was good. They were not top 10 good like a lot of people had them, but they were very good.
Hmm.
A&M over St. Mary's. A lot of people have their perspective of A&M skewed by how terrible they played in a hurricane in College Station in the playoff.
Hmm.
But it just kind of is what it is there. And then I have
I mean,
Houston.
shout out A&M for finally winning a playoff game, even in a hypothetical, never going to happen situation.
Fair, fair. But if college football did a 64 team playoff, A&M could make it at 8-4.
There we go.
I've got Houston over Idaho. Uh,
Yeah.
pretty
Idaho's
simple.
FCS. Idaho's FCS team, but they play in an awesome stadium.
Yes. They are the single team to ever request to move from FBS to FCS.
Hmm.
In the West bracket, I've got Arizona over LIU, Long Island. If last year's Florida team beat Long Island, the last year's Arizona team is absolutely beating Long Island.
Hmm.
I got Villanova over Utah State. Villanova was top 10 team in the FCS last year, played extremely well, made it deep into the playoffs, and Utah State was 3-9 or 2-10 in the Mountain West, and the only teams they
Yeah.
beat were bottom of the barrel FCS teams.
I was gonna say
Villanova was not that.
Utah State's usually a pretty decent program. Like they'll be a 6-6 team usually because they get beat up on by the
The schools
powers
that
that
pay
pay
them
them.
to play them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Villanova, I think they were talking about trying to move Villanova up and like kind of try to recreate a Big East type conference. I could be wrong.
Let's go.
Yeah. They need to. They
Bro,
do
West
that.
Virginia can finally win a conference again.
Hey, bring up St. John's too. Move up from D3 to FBS. Let's go.
Well, I don't know about all that. Come on. With how bad Wisconsin was, I still think they beat High Point. Uh,
Yeah.
and I have Hawaii over Arkansas.
Yes.
Look, we all love Sam Pittman. We loved watching Taylon Green last year. Their offense was very fun, but they were not a good team.
No.
I, they were like very significantly the worst team in the SEC last year.
Yeah.
And I think last year's Hawaii team beats this team, especially with the Japanese kicker who doesn't speak English but bangs 60 yarders. Like, absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And then I know Texas won their play-in game,
Hmm.
and I do
Yeah.
have BYU
Texas, BYU.
over Texas,
Yeah, this is probably the best game of,
the
our
first round.
hypothetical bracket, first
I would,
round.
yeah, I would agree 100%. But I do, and just if I'm being 100% honest, the reason that I have BYU over Texas is because BYU was very, very good at two things last year. They were very good at defensive line of scrimmage,
Hmm.
stopping the run, getting to the quarterback, and running the football. And if you can do both of those things well, you're beating last year's Texas team. Last year's Texas team was extremely weak on both sides of the line of scrimmage. If you could push them around, you were beating the shit out of them. We saw it in Athens.
Hmm.
So BYU is, I think, hypothetical score 31-13 beating Texas.
Now, it depends on where it's at. I mean, if it's at home, I mean, it might be worse than that for BYU, like
That's
that
true.
one.
If it's at elevation, Texas getting smoked.
Yeah, they might as well not even show up.
Um, Potentially an upset. I do have Kennesaw State over Gonzaga. I'm not even sure if Gonzaga has a uh, football team, regardless of level. But Kennesaw State showed a
Yeah.
lot of people last year that they were a good football team in Conference USA.
Hmm. Yeah, they had an outside chance of making the 12-team playoff. A lot of things had to go their way, but
Yeah.
they weren't not bad.
I mean, two Group of Five teams made it. Might as well have thrown Kennesaw State in there instead of Miami or one of those other teams that didn't do anything, right?
Right, exactly.
Speaking of Miami, I do have Miami over Mizzou. Mizzou
Yep.
didn't have a quarterback last year that could throw a forward pass.
Mm.
regardless of his health, that kind of very much limits your possibilities. And then Purdue finally won a football game in the year of our Lord 2025 by beating Queens.
Good for them.
I do know that Purdue went like 2-10 last year. I think they beat
Yeah.
Maryland. It
Mm.
if the highlight of your season is beating Maryland, you probably need to question whether or not you should have a football team.
Yeah, Jeff Brom's not walking through that door.
Whew. All right, starting the Midwest bracket, I do have Michigan over Howard.
Howard. Yeah.
Yep, Howard made that one. Um, Georgia over St. Louis. I understand, and basketball did not play out that way. And football would be a very, very, very different conversation.
Very
Um,
different.
I got Texas Tech over Akron,
Yeah.
pretty easy. Alabama over Hofstra, another easy one. Um, who won the Miami, Ohio, and SMU playing game? I think it. I,
Miami won.
okay, that's what I was thinking too. It didn't matter. Tennessee was beating either of those teams.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think
Um,
before you go on, I think that was the one thing because I remember that it's like SMU is the only Power Four team that has gone longer without winning a NCAA tournament game than Georgia. Like SMU's at like 35 years and Georgia's at 24 for basketball, of course.
I could have gone the rest of my life without hearing that stat, but I appreciate it.
And SMU wasn't even a Power Four team until 2 years ago.
Yeah. So I do have Tennessee over both of those. Got Virginia over Wright State. Kentucky
Mm.
over Santa Clara.
Big win for Kentucky.
Kentucky was a very talented team last year. The problem is their coaches were just awful.
Yeah.
We want to talk about awful coaches. Kentucky's defensive coordinator is now at Florida, so we can all uh,
There you
think
go.
about that when we're concerned
Okay.
about Florida and their transfer class this year.
Yeah.
Um, and then Iowa State over Tennessee State. Uh, Eddie George
Rocco-backs.
Respecter,
Yeah.
still not beating Rocco Becht.
No, not at all.
And then we have a battle of a conference champion playing a conference runner-up in Duke over Ohio State.
Mm.
But I do have Ohio State winning that game
Yeah, it's fair.
pretty easily.
Mhm.
Just being honest. And then I have Kansas over St. John's. St. John's may have scored 70-ish points in a lot of games last season, but that's D3 teams, not FBS teams. And
Yeah.
y'all don't realize how long I spent researching St. John's in northern Iowa just to realize after all of it that it didn't matter because Kansas was beating either of those teams.
Right, right.
Um, I do have USF over North Dakota State just because, like I said, when it came to the game against Louisville, USF did a lot of things very good last year.
Hmm.
USF was a good football team last year. I think USF is probably a top 5 team in the ACC last year.
Yeah, second best team in the state of Florida.
Statistically correct.
Yeah.
UConn over UCF. UConn was a very good football team last year. UCF was a very bad football team last year. Same level of football. UCF probably more talented. UConn more disciplined, better coordinators.
Yeah.
I do have Iowa beating Florida, and even as a Georgia fan, I I think I'm more anti Iowa in the way that they play football than I am anti Florida.
But yeah, the way Iowa plays is offensive. I mean, their offense is offensive for one.
But we don't mean like offensively productive. It's like it hurts your eyes
Yes.
as a modern football fan. Now, if you had just left the Teddy Roosevelt Conference on Football Safety
Yeah.
and watched this Iowa team play football, that would be the best offense you'd ever seen in your life.
Hmm. Yeah.
But as someone who watched the 2022 Peach Bowl between Georgia and Ohio State, and hundreds of games between those two. But that's just one of those. They almost scored at will in a game that came
Oh,
down to the last play of the game.
mhm. That's way more fun than watching like 15 punts. Sorry.
Right. Like if the player with the most yardage on your team is the punter, please go
Mhm.
away. Just
Yeah.
just leave. And Iowa somehow, some way, thanks to the rest of the Big Ten being awful, is in conference championship conversations every year.
Well, to be fair, when back when the Big Ten was when they split it up and had divisions, they were in the far weaker one. Like I think Iowa made the Big Ten championship against. I mean, I think they made it a few times, but I think they played in 2023 against Michigan, I want to say. So it wasn't even that long ago that they were in the conference championship, but that was just because like no like what they're playing against what Nebraska and Wisconsin and teams like that
Iowa
that
was in fifth in the Big Ten with a 9-3 record last year. They were
yeah,
they were Ohio State and Oregon losing one more game from playing in the conference championship.
that would have been sweet.
Like that's the state of the Big Ten and
Mhm.
Iowa because they're just gross.
Yeah, Bandy.
And in the year of our Lord 2025, Vanderbilt was a better football team than Nebraska. Imagine time traveling to 1995 and telling someone that.
It's like, what did Vanderbilt discover better steroids? Is that what happened? Nerds.
They discovered they're a private school and can just pay people whatever they want to.
Yeah.
Um, I've got Illinois over UNC. UNC was very disappointing last year, and Illinois was a good team. I feel like if Burt wasn't just such an abrasive person, people would respect Illinois.
Hmm.
Um, but they've got a terrible version of the color of orange, which is already a terrible color, and
Yeah.
one of the most abrasive coaches in college football. And if you
There's
want to
nothing
hear a
appealing about
story about how terrible Burt is, uh, go back to our preseason episode with Matt Austin, of where I accidentally forced him into calling out Brett Bielema as just being awful to work with.
it. Yeah.
Um, and I got A&M over Houston. I think that would have been a good game last year. Just full
Yeah.
transparency. Houston was a significantly better team than the outside perspective showed last
Hmm.
year. They had a very core four transfer heavy team with
Hmm.
former A&M quarterback. Cannot think of his name.
Connor Wigman.
Connor Wigman. They had
Yeah.
Connor Wigman, so that would have been a fun matchup. Connor Wigman playing Texas
Mm.
A&M.
Revenge game. That would have been
Yeah,
sweet.
that would have been a fun one. Moving over to the west side of the bracket, Arizona over Hawaii.
Villanova. So
Arizona.
it's-
Yep. No, I was looking at the wrong side of it.
well, okay. Yeah. So, well, okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Arizona over Villanova.
Hmm.
Hawaii over Wisconsin. The dairy raid
Yeah.
is not raiding anything.
And the milk's dry.
Yeah, the milk has run dry.
That cow is, that cow ain't mooing.
I got BYU over Kennesaw State, and one
Ooh.
that hurts as just pro state of Georgia outside of Georgia State people. It was not fun to pick that one.
Sad
Um,
hootie. Ooh.
in a shocker for the Miami and Purdue game, I do have Miami winning.
I was gonna say.
Um, I do. I've got Georgia over Michigan. I think that's pretty easy one.
Yeah.
Last year's Michigan team wasn't bad. They were held back significantly by coaches who were spending more time in DMs than they were in meetings and planning. So,
Yeah. Could you imagine if he? No, never mind. Never mind.
um, I've got Texas Tech over Alabama.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think that's a debate, really.
And so I did prepare a little bit of a thought process behind this one because I'm sure a lot of people are gonna like, oh, it's a Georgia podcast, y'all are SEC homer, whatever. Alabama was so bad at running the ball last season, and they were so bad on the offensive line. They have their worst preseason over under win total since 2007 this year.
Is it like 8, 7.5?
8.5.
Wow. Okay.
Their Vegas season total for 2026 is 8.5.
Damn.
That's how bad the offensive line was last year. They're going in to this season with no quarterback that has ever made a start. Between a redshirt freshman and a guy who's in like his 5th year of college football and has not made a start.
Mm-hmm.
Bama's down bad. We're gonna do ranking like hot seats at some point, probably over the next couple of months, probably shortly after spring. Um, Spoiler: Kalen DeBoer's seat is warm.
Pretty warm, yeah.
Like it's you get into your car in March and you're thinking, did I park in the sun or is my heated seat on warm? Like
Yeah.
uncomfortably warm.
And you got to think, like, does Kalen DeBoer wish that Sharon Moore went crazy maybe like a week sooner, and then Michigan actually poached him and he got a fresh start? Because like obviously he's not going to Michigan now, but like, he may still have a choice of jobs after he gets fired from Alabama, but who knows?
Yeah. Potentially a shocker here. I have Virginia over Tennessee.
Oh yeah, Virginia was
Virginia was good
Virginia.
last year. They should have won their conference. They should have made the playoff over Miami. Let's not forget if Virginia just beats 7-5 Duke, they're in the playoff over Miami.
Yep.
Um, but the main reason is because of how bad Tennessee's secondary was last year and
Mhm.
how interceptable Joey Aguilar's passes were.
Yeah.
So those are the big reasons that I've got Virginia over Tennessee. Um, Iowa State over Kentucky.
Yeah.
It was not. It was as someone who's lived in Kentucky and is an SEC fan. That sucked. The entire state of Iowa. I'm just not a fan. But
I mean, again, they still have Rocco. They still had Rocco back. They still have for this scenario. They had still had Matt Campbell. So I mean, yeah,
what? And also, I do think it's a significantly different game if you're talking week 2 or week 10.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because in week 10, man, they just said, "Hey, Cutter Bowley, go have fun."
It's all about just having fun out there, boys.
I, they played a lot better having fun than they did actually trying to win football games. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So moving back over to the East, we are in the Elite Eight, um, which ironically is less teams than we currently have in the college football playoff. But
Ohio State getting another favorable draw? No way.
facts: Ohio State over USF pretty easily.
Oh my God. The road to the. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm in mad.
You're looking at what I said earlier. Um, and then the next one, an ACC matchup in the Elite Eight, A&M versus Vanderbilt, and
Oh
for
wait, what about
reference.
South Florida, UConn? Did you say that?
Oh no, I look, man, there's a reason I don't do brackets. I'm way ahead of the curve here. I have Ohio State over Kansas to get to the Elite Eight, USF over UConn. USF is a more talented team. They were closer to a Power Five team than a lower end Group of Five team. And I think
Mhm.
UConn was, if they were in a conference, they would not have played near as well as they did as an independent. Um,
Right.
Vandy over Iowa. Look,
Yeah.
Iowa was good last year. That was the best Vanderbilt team in the history of the football program. They were beating Iowa last year, especially if it was a consequential game. Like if we're
Mhm.
talking, if these teams went to the Cure Bowl, Iowa cares more. If
Yeah.
these teams are meeting in the playoff, Vandy's boat racing Iowa.
Or even if they met like week 3 of the season.
Correct.
Yeah.
I've got A&M over Illinois, and this one was another tough one But to me,
Mm.
it came down to just how good A&M's offensive line was against every team not named Miami with 2 first-round edge rushers. Um, and A&M's defense was also phenomenal. Luke Altmaier is going to be one of those guys. Luke Altmaier is probably going to have a Chase Daniel-ish
I
professional
was
career.
just gonna say that. You took the
Like,
words out of my mouth.
man, like
He's gonna make
he's
$50 million and throw like 50 career passes.
correct. But he's good enough that they're not going to lose games that he has to come in late due to injuries.
Yeah.
Like, I
Mhm.
don't have anything negative to say about Luke Altmaier, but he's not one of the top 32 quarterbacks in the country. Like, he's not going to be a starter, but he's the top 64 quarterback in the country. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's safe to say.
Mhm.
Um,
I mean, if Tim Boyle could be a backup quarterback, Altmaier can.
Facts. I got Arizona over Hawaii. Arizona was a little disappointing over the last couple of years, but they were still good last year. I think they went 9-3 in the Big 12.
And they still had Noah Fafita.
They
He
still had
wasn't as good
Noah
as the year
Fafita.
before. He wasn't as good
Um,
as the year before, but he's still solid.
yeah, Noah Fafita without T Mac is a
Yeah.
struggle.
Hmm.
But
This
if
game.
if Carolina drafts Noah Fafita, Bryce Young doesn't have a job, and Carolina's getting to the NFC Championship game.
Hmm. Yeah.
BYU versus Miami, and with these seeds, it would be Miami at BYU.
Talk about conflicting fan bases. Golly.
Yeah, I
My
still
God.
think Miami wins this one by probably 10 or more points. I think 10 to 13 is
Yeah.
probably around where it is.
Hmm.
And I don't want to overstate how, like, I don't want y'all to think that I think Miami was truly that good last year, top to bottom. Miami had Mark Fletcher, who
Incredible.
he was a top 3 running back in the country, and I think it is a truly a debate on where he is in that top 3.
Hmm.
They had Malachi Tony on the offensive side of the ball that could make up for any mistake the quarterback made, which he made a lot. And then they had 2 potentially top half of the first round edge rushers on the defensive side of the ball. Like Miami had 4 guys that could take over any game at any point in time. None of those guys were Carson Beck, and you are muted.
Damn, I was gonna say if you had Darian Mensah on 2025's Miami team,
They probably won the title.
probably. I mean, they
And
got that far with Carson Beck as a
right.
liability. Yeah.
I do have Miami winning that game. And like I said, it's mainly because they had 4 guys that could individually take over any game they played in at any point in time.
Hmm.
Um, well, if we're being entirely honest with each other, guys, if it was not for Carson Beck, Miami's undefeated last year.
Yeah, for
Miami
sure.
is
Yeah.
15-0 playing 15-0 Indiana
Hmm.
if Carson Beck didn't throw a combined 10 interceptions in 2 games.
Definitely worth that $3 or $4 million you got, right?
Uh-huh. You know what? The Jets are just gonna have so much fun with him. He's gonna do so good with the New York media of where they're like they a press conference immediately after a game in which they lose and he throws 4 interceptions. Hey Carson, why do you suck? Oh, it's the coaches and the receivers and the offensive line, and it's everybody else's fault. Like I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not the problem.
Yeah.
I just do this everywhere I've ever played football.
Everyone's wrong but me.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, I can see that being Carson Beck's tell-all book that sells like 12 copies. Everyone's wrong but me.
Yeah.
Moving
Moving
into
on.
the
Georgia gets this draw. Okay.
yeah. So Georgia plays in back-to-back-to-back weeks. Michigan, who I think they beat. Texas Tech, who once again I think they beat just because Texas Tech secondary was soft.
Yeah. Hmm.
And if you're asking a soft secondary to come up in space, and we're also like hypothetically, everyone's healthy.
Hmm.
You have a healthy Georgia offensive line with Drew Bobo and Chauncey Bowens and Nate Frazier, where you're asking a soft Texas Tech secondary to cover Nate Frazier, or not Nate Frazier, to cover Zachariah Branch or Dylan Bell or Colby Young or
Hmm.
Noah Thomas or Lawson Lucky or Oscar Dell
Oscar Dale.
one on one, so that the defensive line can focus on stopping Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. Like I don't look. Texas Tech did incredible things last year. They did
Hmm.
incredible things to the tune of more money than you and I combined will ever make in our entire lives.
Yep.
But they did incredible things last year. But they're not going up against a team with a two deep like Georgia and beating them outright. Like we watched it with Oregon. Because
Yeah.
I think Oregon was more talented in specific places than Georgia last year, but I think if you line up a healthy two deep with Oregon top to bottom and a healthy two deep with Georgia top to bottom, I think Georgia's significantly more talented in the two deep. And Oregon, without being healthy, did things that are censored in the deep south against Texas Tech.
Yeah, and I don't think it would be necessarily if Georgia and Oregon played, it wouldn't be as bad as the 2022 game. Like it's not going to be that
No,
bad.
for
I mean,
sure.
it'll be
I would
closer
agree
for
with
sure.
that.
But
Now, that's yet to be seen with the new offensive coordinator. They did do an internal hire, and if Dan
mhm.
Lanning is truly following the Kirby Smart path, his first internal hire at offensive coordinator is going to be the worst offense that we've seen in 20 years. So,
So take the under on the season total.
and then I've got Virginia over Iowa State. Just late in the season, Virginia was a significantly better team. I That's really where it comes from because I'm not a huge believer in Rocco Becht or Matt Campbell. Um, and if you're putting them in this position late in the season to have to win a game, I'm going to call 2 interceptions and a poorly timed timeout
Yeah, for
because
sure.
Penn State saw something in Matt Campbell, and it was probably poor coaching decisions.
This guy is just a more generic James Franklin, probably cheaper.
Facts. All right, Elite Eight. I've got Ohio State over USF. I think that's
Yeah,
pretty easy.
yeah, that should go without saying. Yeah.
We got A&M over Vandy, and I think that would be a great game, just
Oh yeah.
because the two teams were so similar, except for Vandy. I think was all right. So, and this in my head, it makes so much sense because I see thoughts as pictures. So, when somebody has an incredible game at quarterback in the NFL, you'll see the graphic pop up of it's a field and they have all the green dots for completions, like blue dots for touchdowns and white dots for incompletions.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about? Like I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
imagining
Hmm.
things. All right, so if we had that for A&M and Vanderbilt last year, Vanderbilt was all green and blue, 25 yards and into the line of scrimmage.
Hmm.
And it was so much green and blue, 25 yards and in. And then A&M was the opposite. It was 25 yards and out.
Yeah, the boom and bust. Yeah.
Right. And so A&M had significantly better receivers. I think Vandy had probably better play calling last year,
Yeah.
and play calling that fit their personnel better. But I do think at the end of the day, Vanderbilt's secondary probably falls short of reining in the A&M wide receivers. And I have A&M in a close one, but
Hmm.
that's one that I would actually love to. I may sim the Elite Eight games in on college football and post them
Hmm.
to YouTube because I do think a few of these are actually interesting games.
Yeah.
Um, And
Arizona and
then,
Miami probably not, but
yeah, Arizona, Miami, probably not. I think Miami probably runs away with this one just because the highlight of Arizona last year was their offense.
mhm,
Um, and there's no one in the Big 12 that had a defensive front like Miami did.
right.
So I think Miami runs away with that one. And then Georgia and Virginia at the end of the season could have been a sneaky good game.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, not quite Georgia and Ole Miss in Athens good, but like Georgia Auburn, but higher scoring. Like that level of close, but
Hmm.
higher scoring. Good.
Yeah, I can see that.
But I do have Georgia winning that one just because, Virginia lost to Duke when it mattered. Again, I'm never going to pick the team that lost to Duke to beat Georgia.
Right. Hmm.
Um,
Ever.
and the Final Four is just, it's so interesting. It really is. And
So this could have been a Final Four this year, I think. I mean,
it
and I
could
don't, I
have.
don't know all teams are in the playoff. I
It
don't
could
know.
have been playoff matchups, but I'm not sure it could have been a semifinal. The Georgia
No, it couldn't have
Miami
been.
side of it
It couldn't have been.
absolutely could have been. I don't know if the
Well,
Ohio
Miami
State
and
A&M.
Miami and A&M played each other, so
Okay, so Miami and Georgia could have been. Ohio State and A&M could not have been. But it it definitely, all four of these teams did make the playoffs, and we have Ohio State and A&M. I think Ohio State wins that one pretty easily.
yeah,
Just
I don't think it's close. I mean, if Ryan Day's throwing the ball or letting what's his face
Julian saying,
Julian Julian Sand throw it to like Jeremiah Smith and Tate, then yeah,
yeah,
it's not easy.
yeah. And then we do have Miami and Georgia.
The game we should have had
The
in
game we
the
should
second
have
round
had.
or third round.
Man, I don't care what the outcome of any other game was. I think Georgia beats Miami in this one because
Hmm.
I do think Kirby Smart has a coaching edge over Mario Cristobal.
Hmm.
I think Carson Beck already has a problem with getting into his own head and the way that he mentally plays the game of football.
Yeah.
And if he was going against guys that picked him off every day in practice, and he was going against Big Game Dalen
Yeah. In front of people?
in front of people, like I and don't get me wrong, Mark Fletcher probably has 150 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns. Uh, Miami's probably got 4 sacks in this one,
Yeah.
but and especially if Drew Bobo's not healthy and Georgia can't run the ball, Miami, like I think it would have been close.
Hmm.
I'm gonna say 31-28 Georgia win.
Yeah, that's about what I was gonna say.
Um,
Good game.
Great game. One of
Yeah.
those that like I don't sit down for the entire second half type of games. But then that brings us to the final. If we had a 64 team college football playoff of, ironically, in the 64 team, it would have been 8 seed Georgia versus 8 seed Ohio State.
Hmm.
But based on who won their conference, we'll say that Georgia's got home home team advantage.
Yeah.
Um, this would have been tough. Like no BS. I'm not real high on Georgia secondary this past year, and going against Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate, that would have been a tall task. I also think that Ohio State's defense stopping a fully healthy Georgia offense would have been a tall task.
Hmm.
I think the score ends up close to the Peach Bowl. Truth be
Real.
told,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's one of those of Georgia scores a lot and the Ohio State defense figures it out because Uh, the guy you hate, Ohio State's defensive coordinator,
Oh,
Matt Patricia.
fat ass Matt Patricia. Yes.
Yeah, Matt. Well, he got on Ozempic.
Yeah. So
Um,
formerly fat ass Matt Patricia,
Matt
deflated Matt
Patricia.
Patricia.
I think Matt Patricia is a better coordinator than Mike Bobo. So Mike Bobo comes in with a better game plan. Matt Patricia makes better in-game adjustments. Georgia scores 44 points in the first 3 quarters of the game based on explosives. Ohio State's way too confident, aka the way that they play every big game, and then just get stonewalled in the fourth quarter, and Ohio State comes storming back because I'm not ever going to trust Dalen Everett or that secondary the way they played last year to
Mhm.
stop Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith for 4 quarters. They scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to make it a close game
Mhm.
and still lose 42-44.
There we go. Dogs on top.
Yeah, and I think that's just how it is. Like if health isn't a factor, and obviously this is an imaginary world, if health isn't a factor, like if Georgia's offensive line is healthy last year, I do think the playoffs end up differently. I still
Hmm.
think Indiana probably wins last year, just to be fair.
Yeah.
But I think everything else plays out a little differently if Georgia's not so banged up on the offensive line. But
Yeah.
I do put that on Stacy Searles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Adios.
thank you.
I gotta say, thank God Indiana's basketball team sucks. That would have made this bracket a lot more interesting if they actually made the tournament.
Fair. Um, but that's going to do it for this episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. We will not have one coming out later this week. I know it sucks that we've been doing one a week here recently, but between traveling and work and everything else, it's just kind of been difficult to get 2 a week out. But I am traveling this Thursday night, so we will not be doing an episode. Um, I just completely lost my train of thought. We will have some more different types of content coming up. Hopefully, we are hiring someone else at my company, which gives me actual room to breathe and do things other than like work and exist on a daily
Yep.
basis. So that'll be nice, and it'll give you guys more different types of content. But follow us on social media. You know what? Caleb's talking about voluntarily coming to the best podcast in Savannah celebration. And if that's the case, 3 of us might be going live while hammered on Instagram. So you
Am I gonna have
gotta follow us.
am I gonna have a job the next day?
You gotta follow us at nothing.finer.pod on Instagram to catch that and see if Mike has a job the next day. At FinerPod on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Just look us up. You will find us there. And you know what, man? People are upset about the stat-backed home field advantage we put out last week to the tune of like, hold on, I'm pulling it back up. Let's check this out. 45 comments and 300 shares. So if you guys would like to leave your opinion of LSU and Tennessee and Utah, we have a Utah fan saying that they have the best home field advantage in college football.
Rice Eccles Stadium. You can't sleep on that.
Like, I'll be honest, y'all. If you want your team to be listed on our best home field advantage in college football, don't lose at home. It's pretty simple. We don't ask you to do a
Yeah.
lot, just not suck at home. But that seems like a fun thing to do every year and rage bait people, so we'll probably keep doing that. And always remember, y'all, there's nothing finer in the land.
Then Chuck Knox, a Georgia fan.